Hello everyone, my name is Dave. Welcome to Dave's English, and today I'm going to be doing a short format video lesson on phrasal verbs. Now, I am thinking about doing these types of short format lessons where we put a lot of information into a small amount of time, and I want to know if this is something that you think will help you with your English. So please comment below. Let me know if you like the shorter format of a video, if you want a longer format. Tell me as well. Give me some feedback on this, and I'm going to see what works better for a lot of people. But the whole idea of this is to try to get through things quickly, but yet be very precise, and to have this basically action-packed with a bunch of information in it. So let's go ahead and start talking about phrasal verbs. So what is phrasal? Well, that's an adjective for phrase. What is a phrase? You can basically think of a phrase as a collection of words that work together, like a black car. They are connected together. This is different from a clause. A clause is something that has a subject-verb agreement. So therefore, a clause is a phrase, but a phrase might not necessarily be a clause. Now, we're talking about phrasal verbs, so therefore a verb is an action or a state of being. So therefore, a phrasal verb is a collection of words that work together as a verb. So how do we form a phrasal verb? We usually form it by having a verb and then something else connected to it. So you can have a preposition connected to it, like push in. You can also have an adverb connected to it, like push away. You can also have an adjective connected to it, like push over. However, sometimes you can have more than one thing connected to it. So we can say, I'm going to catch up with my family this weekend. To catch up with has catch as our verb, and then up, and then with. These all work together as a phrasal verb. So it's not always just one word after the verb. It can be two words after the verb. And when we're conjugating these, we want to make sure that we're conjugating the verb that's in the phrasal verb. You don't want to conjugate the adjective or the preposition or the adverb at the end. You always want to just conjugate the verb. So we would say, it works out instead of it work outs. That would be incorrect. Now, when we talk about phrasal verbs, we have literal meanings and figurative meanings. What do we mean by that? A literal meaning means that the phrasal verb is performing the action that you expect it to because it's using the words in the way in which those are used. So, for example, if we want to say we are pushing open the door, we are actually doing the action of push and creating the state of it being open. So to push open a door would be the literal meaning of that phrasal verb. However, if we're thinking of a figurative meaning of a phrasal verb, we can think of something like to figure out. I need to figure out what to do. This means to understand, to comprehend what to do. In this case, figure out and comprehend don't really relate to one another. One thing we need to understand with phrasal verbs, and this is very important, is the difference between a transitive and an intransitive verb. So what is a transitive verb? A transitive verb is a verb that requires a direct object. So we can say, for example, I like cake. Now, a lot of people make a mistake with I like, and they will just say, oh, I like. But that's incorrect. It's a transitive verb. So you need to add a direct object after it. You need to say, I like cake or I like it. There are some rules that can change that order if you have an indirect object, but that's not the discussion of this. This will be a discussion for another video. Now, when we're talking about transitive phrasal verbs, there are two kinds that we can talk about. So the first type of transitive phrasal verb we have is a separable transitive phrasal verb. And this means that you can take the phrasal verb and separate it and add something in the middle. So for example, we can say, we need to wake Johnny up, or we can say, we need to wake up Johnny. However, if you replace Johnny with a pronoun, him, then it changes. You can only put a pronoun in the middle of a separable phrasal verb. So you can only say, we need to wake him up. We also have something called inseparable phrasal verbs, and this means you cannot separate the phrasal verb. For example, we can say, you need to get over your girlfriend. Now, we can't say, you need to get your girlfriend over. That would be incorrect because this is an inseparable phrasal verb. This also applies if you change your girlfriend to the pronoun her. You have to say, you need to get over her. You cannot say, you need to get her over. That would be incorrect. Most of the phrasal verbs you encounter are separable, and there's usually an inseparable one if there's actually already a separable one, and the separable one might have a different meaning. Therefore, an inseparable one provides a different meaning for that phrasal verb. So now let's talk about intransitive verbs. What is an intransitive verb? As you could probably figure out, it is one that does not require a direct object. So let's look at the verb sleep before we get into the phrasal verbs. We can say, I slept. We don't have a direct object there. We just have the subject and a verb, I slept. You can also have an adverb, I slept well. Or you can have a preposition to indicate maybe a direction or a location. I slept on the bed. So let's look at intransitive phrasal verbs. So we can just say, for example, he woke up. You just have a subject and a phrasal verb. That's it. You can also say he ran out quickly. So you have a subject, a phrasal verb, and just an adverb after it. Or you could say he walked up to the podium. In this situation, we're using to indicate a direction from one spot to another. So intransitive phrasal verbs will have this type of structure. Now, in this situation, if we change an indirect object to a pronoun, we don't make any changes. We keep it exactly the same. So that last example, he walked up to the podium. If we just replace podium with it, we would just say he walked up to it. Now, one thing to remember is that they're not necessarily exclusively one or the other. You can have some phrasal verbs that actually hold both qualities. So let's take messed up. You can just say, I messed up. You can also say, I messed up badly. Both of these intransitive phrasal verbs, but you can also say, I messed up my test. And in that situation, it is a transitive phrasal verb. So some phrasal verbs, as well as regular verbs, can take on both the qualities of a transitive and intransitive verb. Now, one thing you don't want to do is to confuse a phrasal verb with a verb and a preposition, and this can happen. For example, I can give you the sentence, I worked on my car. Now, a lot of people might look at worked on and think, that's a phrasal verb, but it's not. It's just simply a verb with a preposition. I, subject, worked, verb, on, preposition, my car, indirect object. So you want to make sure that you have these correct, because let's say you're thinking, this is a phrasal verb and this is a direct object after a phrasal verb, then you might make a mistake. So you might say, I worked it. If you changed it to a pronoun, I worked it on, which is incorrect. So one thing we can do too is we can make a phrasal verb a noun. So when you write a phrasal verb as a verb, you have a space in between the two. You just put these two words together and now you have a noun. Now there is a little bit of a difference. So let me give you an example. We can say, I worked out this morning. This would be an intransitive phrasal verb. There's no direct object. I worked out this morning. However, you can say, I had a workout this morning. When we talk about phrasal verbs and the stress can either be on the verb or the preposition or the adjective or the adverb. But usually if we're using a phrasal verb in a noun form, the stress will be on the verb part. So we would say, I had a workout this morning. Okay, I have a startup company. The stress is usually on the verb part when we make it a noun. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that this was very helpful for you today. If you like this shorter format of a lesson that just has a lot more information in it, please let me know. Also, if you're interested in taking lessons with me, just go to my website, davesenglish.com, and you can sign up for lessons right on the front page. So thank you all very much. I will see you soon, and have a wonderful day wherever you are. Bye-bye.